Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Development Advisory Virtual Committee meeting by electronic participation of March the 8th, 2022. And I'll start with the roll call of Dan Kennedy,
Present.
Dennis O'Connor,
Present.
Paul Sedra,
Present.
and I, John Sapuz, am present as well. So tonight, we have two committee meetings. First is the Committee of Adjustment, where we have two minor variance applications to consider and vote on. And then we'll close that meeting, and then we'll move to the Planning and Development Advisory Committee meeting, where we have two zoning bylaw applications, which we will provide comments to the township council, and we have one severance application which we provide comments to the land division committee of the county. So we'll start with disclosure of pecuniary interest. Lynn, oh sorry, I should also indicate that in attendance is our clerk Courtney Hoyt-Fox, our secretary treasurer Lynn Banks, county planning staff, Zach Prince and Joanna Salzberg. So I'll also note that the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. Okay, so let's start now into disclosure of pecuniary interest. Lynn, did we receive any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not.
Okay, gentlemen, do you have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? No, see no's.
No.
Okay, may I have a mover to approve the minutes of February the 8th, 2022?
I'll move.
Moved by Dennis, second by Paul Sedra. All in favor? Dan Kennedy,
In favor.
Dennis,
In favor.
Deep. He's not here. Paul,
In favor.
and I am in favor as well. Okay, so let's move into the next part, which is the application for minor variance or permission under Section 45 of the Planning Act. So the purpose of this hearing is to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or express views with respect to minor variance application before us today. The township requests you please notify the secretary treasurer of the committee by email at lynnbanks@pussens.ca if you wish to be on record and would like to be notified of future hearings and decisions regarding a particular application. The format of the hearing is as follows. Staff will present the information report, specifically outline the purpose of the application, summarizing compliance with the township's notification submission requirements, and outline staff comments, agency comments, and public comments of those who could not attend. We will then ask the applicant or agent to present the purpose and details of application and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, and express their views on the proposal. You will be given each maximum 10 minutes to speak. Following this, the members of the committee can likewise obtain clarification, ask questions, and then the committee will deliberate the application and render the decision. The decision will be subject to a 20-day appeal period. So we'll start with item 6A, minor variance application D13-NAN, Pirashov Nanda Kumar and Jenny Telfer Crum, 7416 Concession 1, rear part lot 36, concession 7, Township of Pussens, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 11.4, table 11.3, agriculture zone standards. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from 1, section 11.4, table 11.3, to permit a reduced rear yard setback to be 1.8 meters or 6 feet instead of 7.5 meters as required. And we'll start with Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification, and submission requirements, outlining staff comments, agency comments, and recommendations, as well as public comments of those who could not attend?
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met, and the following comments were received from the Township of Portland Fire Services Department. The department has no concerns providing any future structures built on the property behind the home have adequate setbacks to ensure spatial separations are maintained to minimize the potential exposure fire should one of the structures be involved in a fire. The GRCA had no comments. Source Water had no comments. Our building department said that based on the information given, they have no concerns with the minor variance. The applicant will be limited to the amount of glazing on the windows they can put in the affected elevation. And if they keep the glazing below 11% of the wall area, they will be okay for the affected elevation. And the building department will do a full code review at the time of permit application.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll ask Courtney, would you please have the owner applicant join the panelists to present their application? Okay. The applicant, would you please state your name and address and give us your presentation?
Hi, my name is Prashant Nanakumar. My address is 7416 Concession 1 in Portland, postal code N0B2J0. And as for my presentation, I was not entirely sure. Wasn't aware I had to present a presentation. What is it that you would like to ask me?
Well, I would suggest you just, there's a drawing on the screen. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that drawing?
Oh, yep, I can.
Okay, so just briefly describe what you're proposing to do there, and if there's anything else you'd like us to know other than what you submitted already, please go ahead.
Yep, so the structure at the bottom, the lower square, is the current existing house. And where it's labeled proposed new addition, we are proposing to add a great room / living room along with the full basement underneath. And just due to the width of the property, it's long and narrow. We were unable to meet the setbacks as prescribed in the bylaw. So we requested an amendment to build closer to the rear property line. And beyond my rear property line is currently an undeveloped field. So there are no developments for a good 400 meters approximately.
Okay, thank you. And I'll turn it over to Lynn. Are there any registrants who have requested to speak?
No, Mr. Chair, there are not.
Okay, Courtney, would you please canvass the audience and see if there are any attendees who would like to speak to this application?
If anyone in the gallery wishes to make a comment, if you could just use the raise your hand feature just at the bottom of your screen. Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's turn it over to the members of the committee. We'll start with you, Dan. Do you have any questions of the applicant or planning staff?
No, I have no concerns on this one. Thanks.
Dennis, likewise?
I'm likewise, no concerns.
Paul? Sorry, Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, my computer. Yeah, no concerns here.
Good, great. Okay, so I'll read the actual document and then we will vote on it. So it's either we approve it, we oppose to it, or defer it. In the matter of section 45 planning of the Planning Act as amended, new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended, and an application for minor variance requesting relief to permit a reduced rear yard setback to be 1.8 meters or 6 feet instead of 7.5 meters. So we either approve, oppose, or defer. So we'll start with you, Dan.
Approve.
Okay, Dennis,
Approve.
Paul, rather,
Approved.
and I approve as well. So it's approved and it's subject to a 20-day appeal period. Great, I think we're done with this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, giving us your presentation. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Minor 6B minor variance application D13 TOD Sam and Laura Todd, 16 Lake Road, concession 2, front part lot 5, Township of Puslinch, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended, section 6.3 zone standards, table 6.2 residential zone standards. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from 1, section 6.3, table 6.2 to permit a reduced interior side yard setback to be 2.04 meters instead of 3 meters as required. Okay, Lynn, we'll turn it over to you. Would you please summarize the application, notification, submission requirements, and outline staff, agency comments, and recommendations, as well as those of public comments of those who could not attend?
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met and the following comments were received. The fire department had no concerns. The building department stated they have no concerns with the spatial separation for this application. Source Water said that the property is located in a vulnerable area, but the activities would not create a significant drinking water threat, so it can be screened out, does not require Section 59 notice under the Clean Water Act. The GRCA stated that the information currently available at their office indicates that the subject property contains the provincially significant Puslinch Lake Irish Creek Wetland Complex and the regulated allowance adjacent to the wetland. Due to the presence of the above noted features, majority of the subject property is regulated by the GRCA. Any future development or other alteration within the regulated area will require prior written approval from the GRCA in the form of a permit pursuant to Ontario Regulation 150/06.
Okay, thank you very much. Courtney, would you please have the owner applicant join a panelist to present their application?
Hi, Trey McCarthy. I'm representing the owners, Laura and Todd. And it's a simple application where we have an unheated sunroom going at the back of the residence. And it's just, we've got issues with the window in the way, so we had to go back towards the property line. And that's the reason why we're asking for approval on this permit application or this sort of commit of adjustments.
Okay, so can you just briefly explain the nature of the variance that you're requesting?
Well, the setback was, I can't see it on screen there. Can't zoom in there. The setback is just encroached by like roughly about 3 feet. It's like a meter.
Okay.
So the setback is 3 meters and we're asking for 2.
Okay. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lynn, are there any registrants who requested to speak on this item?
No, Mr. Chair, there are not.
Okay, Courtney, would you please ask the attendees if there's anyone who would like to speak or provide comments or ask questions regarding this application?
If there's any attendees in the gallery that wish to make a comment, if you could just use the raise your hand feature just at the bottom of your screen. Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn it over to the committee members. I will start with you, Dan. Any questions of the applicant or of staff?
No, no questions. I'm fine with this.
Okay, Dennis?
I am fine as well.
Okay, Paul?
I'm fine as well. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm fine as well. So I'll read the actual wording and in a matter of section 45 of Planning Act as amended and new zoning by new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended and an application for minor variance requesting relief to permit interior side yard setback to be 2.04 meters instead of 3 meters as required. And we either approve object or defer the application. So we'll start with you, Dan,
Approve.
Dennis,
Approve.
Paul,
Approve.
and I approve it as well, and it'll be subject to a 20-day appeal period. Okay, I think we're done with this one as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the next part. We have no other matters, and I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment at 7:15.
I'll move. I can move it.
Okay, Dennis moves, second Dan, and let's go around the table. Dan,
Approve.
Dennis,
Approve.
Deep, rather Paul,
Approve.
and I approve as well. Okay, so let's move into the next part of the evening. It's the calling the Planning and Development Advisory Committee to order. And as I mentioned before, we have two zoning bylaw amendments, which we will provide comments to the Township Council. And we have one severance application, which we provide comments to the County Land Development Committee. So again, I'll do the roll call. I'll start with you, Dan,
Present.
Dennis,
Present.
Deep, sorry, Paul,
Present.
and I'm present as well. All right, so let's go through the other comment. Again, please note that this meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to Ms. Bell's YouTube page. By registering to participate in a meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. Start with disclosure of pecuniary interest. Lynn, did we receive any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not.
Okay, gentlemen, does anyone have any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to the approval of minutes of February the 8th, 2022. May I have a mover and a seconder?
I can move
By
it.
Dan, second by Paul. All in favor? Dan,
Approve.
Dennis,
Approve.
Paul?
Approve.
I approve as well. So the next item is application for site plan urban design review. We have none. And we move into the zoning bylaw amendment. And I'd like to point out again that this committee's mandate is to only provide comments to council when council considers this matter for approval. And I'll read this out for this particular one. We'll start with 7A, zoning bylaw application D14 HUT, James and Sharon Hutton, rear part lots 2 and 3, concession 2, municipally known as 6547 Wellington Road 34, Township of Puslinch. The purpose and effect of our application is to amend the Township of Puslinch Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 23-2018 from agricultural A to natural environment zone 2. 1, site-specific agricultural A- to permit 186 meter square home business office within a detached structure, and 2, site-specific natural environment to permit an existing detached accessory structure to be converted to a 206 meter squared detached additional dwelling unit, also known as an ADU. Okay, Courtney, would you please have the agent or applicant, you're on a panelist, and present the application.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Robson. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property, Sharon and James Hutton. Mr. Hutton's not available this evening. However, his sons are here to answer questions about the property if necessary. So if
ahead.
there's
Thank you.
questions, yep, no problem. So some members of the committee may recall we were in for a minor variance last year with respect to the proposed accessory dwelling unit. I'll just go over the basic site here first. You can see the proposed ADU location and also the proposed home office location on that site plan. Next slide, please. This provides a better view of the existing property. You can see the ADU tucked in the forest there, that structure. Then there's the main dwelling on the property. And then at the south end of the property is another accessory building, which the proposed home office is to be located in. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the proposed ADU. We're requesting relief from the bylaw for a size of 206 meters squared and a setback distance of 73 meters squared. This is to recognize this existing structure as the ADU. It was previously a dwelling unit. And then when there was a new dwelling constructed on the property, this was to be converted to a recreational use by the previous owner of the property. However, this change of use never took place and the dwelling remained in operation on the existing well and septic. So today we are proposing to convert it and to formalize this dwelling on the property by way of the zoning bylaw amendment. So far, the comments have been supported from the GRCA and the environmental consultant, and it's really supported by provincial and county planning policies. We feel it makes a lot of sense to have this building utilized as a dwelling versus constructing a new detached building that would meet the zoning requirements. It just makes sense from a sustainability standpoint and an efficient form of development standpoint. And building permits have been submitted to formalize this use. Next slide, please. Here are the floor plans of the proposed ADU. It mimics the previous floor plan of the building when it was a dwelling unit. Next slide, please. This is the proposed structure to contain the home office. It's an existing structure on the property. This is the view from the side of the house, the main house. Next slide, please. And here is the floor plan, which a building permit has also been submitted to the township for this use. It's 86 meters squared roughly, separated from the rest of the building by a wall with a door, and it's proposed to be utilized by 3 members of the family who reside on the property. They need this extra space in order to accommodate those 3 employees. They're really having a capacity issue at the current office, and it makes sense for them to be working from home from this location. And again, it's we feel it's in keeping with the bylaw, the intent of the bylaw, and it would remain have an appropriate use for the property now and in the future. Also, a building permit has been submitted for the proposed use. Both the proposals, we feel that they make sense because they're utilizing existing space on the property and there's no new construction being proposed, just simply interior renovations. Yeah, that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions of the committee on the proposal.
Thank you. Also, Lynn, were there any agency comments received?
There was during the first circulation, but nothing that pertains to this meeting.
Okay, just want to address the attendees. If there are any attendees watching the hearing and would like to give comments or ask questions regarding this application, I'm advising you that the comments should be heard at the public meeting scheduled for, I believe, March the 23rd, Lynn, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, March the 23rd at 7 o'clock, there'll be a public meeting to discuss this and other items. So if you have any comments, that'd be the opportune time to make them. So let's turn it over to members of the committee. We'll start with you, Dan. You have any comments of the applicant or planning staff with respect to two elements, one being the ADU and the other being the home business attached structure?
On the existing building, was that not supposed to be torn down originally after the main house was built? Or am I wrong on that?
So, yeah, through the chair, it was supposed to be converted to a recreational clubhouse use. The building was allowed to remain on the property,
Okay,
but the actual living area was to be decommissioned. That evidently never occurred, and it continued to operate as a dwelling.
correct.
The current owner purchased it with it operating as a dwelling, and they were not aware that it was supposed to be converted into a clubhouse. They're operating under the assumption it was allowed.
Okay. And now
Perhaps
it's going to
Dan-
be,
Perhaps
Sorry?
Dan, we should ask that of Zach Prince to validate that comment. Is that correct?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to build off of what Matt mentioned, there was never a site-specific zoning in place. This was something that took place at the building permit stage when they built the new structure. Courtney or Lynn might be able to recall when that new structure was built, but that was when the conversion was supposed to take place.
Okay, Dan, carry on with the questions.
okay, so then it's going to be converted into it's going to be maintained as a residential unit plus a business.
So
Through the
there's
chair.
there's two separate structures actually. So there is that structure which remained as a dwelling will just be formally converted back to a dwelling. And there's a building permit application to meet current code standards to convert it to update it to current building code standards versus having it just as the previous dwelling.
Okay,
And
and
go ahead.
so there's also going to be office space in the current building, right?
There's then a separate outbuilding that's proposed to be used as office space, just a portion of it. Not tied to this former farmhouse dwelling whatsoever.
All right,
It's just on the same property. We just
Okay.
figured it would make sense to tie them both into the zoning application versus going for a minor variance or something like that to get that larger size.
okay, thank you. That's it for me.
No problem. Thank you.
Dennis?
Question, I don't know whether this is for Zach or not, but would it not be cleaner to sever the existing building, the original building off into a separate lot and not be as sort of a messy where you got two dwellings and an office and if they still want to keep it in the family, you can do that, but you'll have a separate property. Would that not be a way to go in this particular case versus the amendment?
Through the chair, this isn't a secondary agricultural area, so there may be an opportunity for severance, but that's something that we haven't discussed. It is located, the dwelling itself is located in the Greenland system. That forested area is identified as a significant wooded area in the county official plan, so falls under a separate set of policies. But regardless, the applicant hasn't requested to pursue that route.
Okay.
I can comment on that as well if you'd like,
Sure, go ahead, Matthew.
just for some clarification. It would be challenging to sever that off and have two separate entrances to the existing property and the severed property. There's quite a number of environmental features, as Zach had noted there. So it would be challenging to provide access and provide a separate parcel there in that location.
Okay, that answers that question. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, your comments or questions?
Yeah, no, I think my partners here have answered or asked most of the questions. The only one just a comment was maybe for the public meeting, like I just noticed that the drawing was a little unclear, like to follow along. And I think even Dan was asking sort of like the office and then the accessory building, and there's a main home. So I think just a visual, it would be able like to clarify the visual a bit. I think it would be easier for everyone to see it. That was just my comment on it. It was a bit hard to follow the drawing.
Sure, yeah. I wasn't sure if I would be able to actually be the one controlling the screen. It would make it a lot easier to kind of use my cursor to show which building is what. That's what I was kind of planning on, but I can definitely work on that for the public meeting. Thank you for the comment.
Okay, I got several questions. First of all, you do know without, we're going through a zoning bylaw amendment for ADUs?
Yes, I was aware of
Okay.
that. Yes.
Okay, is there any reason why your application can't wait until the zoning bylaw amendment's through?
The response to that would be, I believe even under the current review, it's likely going to have similar standards, and they'd still need relief for this structure. So we felt that it would make the most sense to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to formalize this structure versus likely needing variances to the new bylaw. We felt that was an appropriate way of going about it.
Okay, all right, a couple other questions. First of all, it's a fair distance away from the building, set of buildings. And normally when you have an accessory ADU rather, it's desirable to have it in a cluster. So you're asking for a variance of 70, quite a fair distance. I believe it's over 70 meters. Can you comment on that?
Definitely, yes. Under the distance does appear like quite a far separation. However, when you look at the overall site, it's over 22 hectares in area. So as an entire site, it's really located within the overall cluster. And it's definitely, it's quite hidden too. Like you wouldn't even know it's in that location unless you're on the property really. And it will really function as incidental to that existing dwelling. So definitely on a smaller parcel, that would, I can understand why there might be more of a concern, but given the scale of the property and size of the existing dwelling, the main dwelling, we feel it's an appropriate setback distance, especially considering it's an existing building that really makes sense to be utilized for a dwelling versus, say, having to tear it down and build a new structure. We feel this makes a lot more sense.
Zach, can you comment on the clustering versus this distance? In other words, typically when we build an ADU, you want it built within a cluster of buildings as opposed to long distance apart.
Yep, through the chair. Yeah, the required distance is for a couple of reasons. One of them is to try to share the existing services on the site. So as Matthew mentioned, it is sharing the driveway. In an ideal world, an ADU could potentially share the septic or the well as well too. This one is on an independent septic and well, partially because of the distance. It's not practical to try to service it with those same services. The other reason is to avoid possible severances in the future as well too. So what the county doesn't want to see is people building ADUs close to the road, only to have severance applications a couple of years later because it's totally separate. So that's kind of the basis and why that distance is there.
Okay, question for you, Matthew. With respect to the size, I know we're trying to limit the size of the ADUs to about 130 square meters. This is almost double that. Can you comment on that?
Through the chair, yes, definitely. We had originally proposed to convert the ground floor basement area into storage and close it off access-wise. If that was the case, the main floor is about 118 square meters, and it would actually meet that bylaw requirement. Staff had concerns about that route just based on the potential to add another dwelling unit in that basement in the future, with new owners of the property. And they felt more comfortable with going along these lines. The main living area, however, is the top floor of the building. And that main basement area, while it's finished, is not really utilized as part of the overall dwelling.
Okay, follow-up question. What will the basement be used for primarily?
Just recreational space generally. I think they're showing a bedroom in the basement. However, I don't think they really intend to use the space. That's why they're willing to actually close it off and have it as just storage area, basically.
Okay, is that still an option to close off the basement?
I'd have to go back and speak to the owners about that. I think their preference at this point is to just formalize the overall dwelling. And if the county is still has those concerns, then yeah, we're willing to work with both the county and the township on that. The preference is to formalize the entire building just to make it cleaner.
Okay. Zach, can you comment on the size, the 130 meters, square meters rather, and the fact that our applicants is suggesting that it was requested by staff to go for the whole building?
Yes, through the chair. The 130 meters is in the bylaw. That's approximately a 2-bedroom apartment. So this is a little bit bigger than that. The reason that we don't want to see it split is just based on previous experiences with the township. There was another fairly recent example where a owner tried to go through a similar instance, and then that basement did actually get converted into another unit. So the intent of the zoning bylaw, as the applicant has proposed it and as what we would go forward, is that this building would only be considered as one apartment, and it's not as if you could do another apartment in the future. So that's our preference going in. However, Township Council may have a different opinion as well too when we get to the public meeting.
Okay, and last, with respect to the office, I believe our bylaw says 50 square meters, and you're sort of a bit over that. Can you comment on that, Matthew?
That definitely can. Just based on the configuration of the existing building and the number of offices required to have 3 employees, the 50 meters squared wasn't really large enough to accommodate it. So that's why they're requesting the additional space. Noting that a home industry, this is a home office. If this was a home industry, it would be permitted up to 100 meters squared. So we feel it's really in keeping with the intent of the bylaw. And yeah, it makes sense to go a little bit larger here. It's going to be for employees who reside in the property, and whether it would be 100 meters squared or 50 meters squared, it really won't change the overall function of the property in any way.
Okay, Zach, any comments with respect to this?
Sure, through the chair. The home business areas, I'm not exactly sure on the why it's at 50 meters, but that's the standard number that's used across other townships as well too. So the home business is allowed in the main dwelling. That's another key difference between a home industry. So your home office could be in your house. It would just be a portion of it. But generally, and similar to the ARUs, the intent is for this to apply to kind of newer buildings and less so conversion. So what we're dealing with is, as Matthew mentioned, it's 2 buildings that are already existing. So in both cases, the areas are bigger than what's permitted in the bylaw.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I'll turn it over to the committee members again. Do you have any comments to make after hearing this discussion? Dan?
No, I'm fine.
Dennis?
I'm okay now too.
Paul? Paul, you're muted.
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, so here's my take on it. First of all, the protection from a severance. Although we heard that the severance is improbable, but the reasoning for the clustering was to sort of negate the possibility of having a severance of the ADU. So my suggestion is to have the comment that whilst the ADU is far away, we should there should be a condition that there should be no severance associated in the future with this ADU. So that's my suggestion for the first comment. The second comment with respect to the size of the building, what we're trying to do with the zoning bylaw amendments is sort of limit the size to 130 square meters. This is quite a bit more, although the applicant has indicated that they will be doing something in the basement, but it'd be basically a recreation area. But I guess I'm really concerned about setting a precedent whereby ADUs in the future will point to this particular location and say, okay, we have one here over 200 square meters. Why can't we have the same likewise? So I'm suggesting those are the comments. In other words, a comment would be number one, with respect to the severance, the ADU, that there'd be a condition that there be no severance permitted for the ADU in the future. And the second being that we're concerned about setting a precedent on the size of the ADU. And with respect to the home office, I really don't have a concern on that. I don't. The rest of you gentlemen didn't have any concern. So just turn it over to the committee members for comments on the comments I made. Dan?
Yeah, I think those are great comments, actually. And can we suggest a time frame? Are you saying just no severance period going forward, or?
I would agree, no severance going forward on this particular ADU. In other words, if he wants to sever a lot for some other purpose, but not this particular ADU, should not be severable.
I agree on that. That's it for me.
Okay. What about the size of the building, Dan?
Absolutely. I think we would be setting a precedent for that. So if there's any way that maybe the basement can be converted to storage and prevented from going into a future apartment down the road, maybe we should do that or suggest that, sorry.
Dennis?
Great comments. I agree with both of them.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, likewise, I think you're right about definitely the precedent as well, because the gap is significant based on the policy.
Okay, Lynn, have you captured that in a way of comments we'll put forward to the council?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did.
Could you read them out and we'll just vote on them?
Certainly. The first comment is that there should be no severance going forward to be permitted in the future for this particular ADU. The second comment is the zoning bylaw amendment is to limit the size, and that the committee is concerned with setting a precedent on size for the ADU for future ADUs with respect to that size. I'll clean that one up. And Dan's suggestion is to convert that the basement should be converted to storage.
Okay, and then with respect to the home office? Lynn?
I didn't capture that one. Can you repeat?
I
please?
think the basically is no comments.
Okay, yeah.
I'll suggest
Concerns?
we just say the committee has no concern with the home office.
Very good. I've got that.
Okay, so have a mover and a seconder. We vote on those.
I'll move it.
Move Dennis, second by Dan. Let's go around the table. Dan,
In favor?
Dennis,
In favor?
Paul,
In favor.
and I'm in favor as well. Okay, great. So
I could speak to that as well too, just those comments if possible quickly.
I'd rather not. You'll have the opportunity to discuss this when the matter is discussed at the public meeting and at council when the matter is being voted on.
Okay.
These are our comments. They don't necessarily reflect the comments of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to 7B, zoning bylaw application D14/SLA, Lisa and Abigail Slater, rear part lot 7 to 9, concession 10, municipally known as 711 Arkle Road, Township of Puslinch. The purpose and effect of applications to amend the Township of Puslinch comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 from agricultural A2 site-specific A- to permit 3 existing residential buildings. Okay, and Courtney, would you please have the agent or applicant join the panelists to present the presentation?
Mr. Chair, and perhaps our secretary, I believe we had an agent registered for this, but I don't see them in the gallery.
Okay,
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I believe John Cox is the agent.
Oh, okay, sorry, I had somebody different, Mr. Gutman as the agent. Lynn?
Yes, that's who I was speaking with. But Mr. Cox also is in on this file.
Oh, okay, then my apologies. He's here. I'll just move him over. Just one moment.
Can you hear me?
yes, we can. John, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, committee members and staff. This application for 711 Arkle Road has resulted from a severance application that the owners made in 2021. And that application was to create a 2-acre lot, which shows on the corner of the sketch that's showing on the screen currently. And it has been conditionally approved by the Land Division Committee. During that process, and as part of the sketch that was prepared and submitted, the existence of the 3 applications, or 3 residential units rather, on the property was shown. A bit of the history of this property is that it is currently owned by Lisa and Abigail Slater, who are sisters. It was acquired by them upon the death of their parents. The parents acquired the property in approximately 1980. And around that time frame, the changes were made in the existing residential structures or existing structures on the property. And I'm going to go through that individually. The main residence on the property is the existing farmhouse, which was a stone house that was built in approximately 1868. And it is currently occupied by Lisa Slater. In about 1980, a building, well, not about 1980, it was 1980, we provided a copy of the building permit as an appendix to my planning justification report. A small bungalow was erected on the property of just over 1,000 square feet. And that is the one that shows the closest to Arkle Road on the sketch that's before you. That Ms. Slater recalls that was primarily occupied by a caretaker for the property on behalf of her parents. She and her sister only acquired this property a couple of years ago upon the death of her parents. That property is now used for as a long-term rental residential property. The other residential structure on the property is a conversion of what was a former stable building and is now referred to as the coach house. And that was done in 1982, so a couple of years after the bungalow was established toward the front of the property. That building permit refers to this as a farm management office, but the renovation at the time included provision for residential space. Since that time, Ms. Slater recalls that it has often been occupied by persons who were employed by the university or PhD students, etc., that also attended the University of Guelph, and it is in fact currently rented to a PhD student at the University of Guelph. Both the main house, the main residential structure, and the coach house are buildings that are noted in the Township of Puslinch Municipal Register of Heritage Properties that was approved by council in, I believe, December of last year, December 2021. The intent of the current owners is to maintain those historic buildings, and certainly the rental income of the property, in fact, partly derived from the rental income from the from one of those units being one of the historic buildings, would assist them in doing that. In terms of a bit about the background policy, we're, I think, all aware that additional residential units are currently encouraged by both provincial and county planning policy. What is distinct about this is that we have 3 residential units on the property. They have existed for a considerable period of time, it'd be 40 years, as you know, basically as they currently exist. So we're asking that the township recognize those. We are aware of the changes that are proposed to the township zoning bylaw, but that would not embrace recognizing the 3 structures on the property, at least not in the format where they're in 3 distinct buildings. Potentially that could have been an accessory unit in the main house and potentially a unit in a second building if the township zoning were amended to foresee that, but we're not anticipating that we would see something that would recognize the 3 buildings that are on the property. They are within an existing cluster. They're all serviced by the same driveway. They're not, the separation in distance is more than is envisioned by the bylaw, but they are located within an area that's close to each other, given the overall scope of the property. They are serviced by, each unit is serviced by an individual septic system, but one well does provide the services for the entire property. So what we are asking in terms of recommendation from the planning committee is for their support in doing this. I was monitoring the meeting for your previous application. And I guess one thing, and I understand the precedent that the township might have. We have one unit that is within the size scope that's contemplated by the bylaw, but the other one as it exists is considerably larger. And maybe that is one distinction that could be made in the recommendations that go forward, is that when something that is already an existing building is being recognized, that be noted as being distinct from someone who is proposing to purpose build something that is completely new. And therefore, of course, they have a greater control over that construction. With those comments, I am open for any input I can provide. And I believe Lisa Slater, one of the owners, is also available on this call if there are any questions that she can assist us in answering. Thank you.
Lynn, were there any agency comments received?
Not for this circulation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so again, I'll reiterate that if there's any attendees watching who would like to give comments or ask questions regarding this application, I'm advising you that they can be heard at a future public meeting. Linda, have we established at least a tentative date for this public meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Right now, we're looking at a tentative date of April, I believe, 13th. Ms.
Okay.
Fox might be able to confirm that that's the date, but I believe that's the date of the public meeting in April.
All right. So let's go around the table, ask the committee members questions of the applicant or of staff. So we'll start with you, Dan.
One question, Mr. Cox, you mentioned that this has been running like this for 40 plus years. And and you also mentioned that all the buildings are heritage properties. Have they been converted in any way though from being heritage properties?
I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to clarify, the existing main farm residence is a heritage property.
Okay.
The one of the accessory residential units is a coach house, and it's a conversion of a former stable, and that is noted in the municipal heritage register. The other newer bungalow, the smaller one toward the front of the property, is not a heritage structure in any way in its own.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Okay, Dennis.
I'm good with this.
Okay, Paul.
I'm okay for now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. John, you made a comment I found puzzling. You're saying that the ATUs are more than the actual 130 square meters. I thought the primary residence is the big one, but I didn't realize the secondary residence, the one closer to Arkell, was over 130 square meters. What is it?
If you'll just give me a moment, Mr.
Sure.
Chair. The one that I referred to a moment ago as the coach house has an area, a floor area of 310 square meters.
Oh, that one. Okay, 310 square meters. Okay. And then the other one, the secondary residence?
Is 1,056 square feet. That would be approximately 100 square meters. I don't have an exact conversion.
That's close enough. It's under the 130 square meters. That's common. Okay, so is the entire coach building being used by the tenant, or is there a limited space in there, certain parts of it, or I'm not sure how the layout is inside.
Perhaps Lisa can clarify if she can be added into the call. My understanding is that the entire structure is used as part of the residential dwelling unit.
Mr. Chair, shall I move Ms.
Yes.
Slater over? Okay.
Could you please?
Muted.
Good evening, Lisa. I see you're muted there, so you'll have to.
Oh. That
Oh.
would help.
Yeah, okay, you're good now.
Thank you. Yes, the building is occupied by a PhD student, her husband, and a baby.
Okay, they use the entire 3,000 square feet?
They do.
Okay.
Well, when you say use, I really don't know what part of the house they're using, but they have access to the entire house.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Okay, a question for Lynn. Lynn, these building permits that were issued for the construction of the secondary building and the home office, can you comment on those?
Mr. Chair, I really cannot comment. I know if these are the permits that were done quite a while ago, Mr. Bunn had searched through the archives and roll files, trying to get more information on them, but was unable to find any further information other than just the general application.
Okay, so there were no conditions as far as the search has been
That's
done?
correct. Yep.
Okay.
I confirmed that with Mr. Bunn.
Okay, question of you, Zach, any comments with respect to the fact that we got, in fact, 2 ADUs and 1 ADU is historic building with roughly 3,000 square feet.
Through the chair, as Mr. Cox noted, both of these are existing situations. So the existing heritage building, the stone coach house, I mean, it was previously not considered an ADU. When planning staff bring forward our recommendation report and public meeting report, we'll also talk about the policies that are in place, similar to what John Cox has noted. But I believe that's all I have to add at this time.
Okay, so I didn't quite understand. Are you saying the stone cottage house, you would not consider that an ADU?
Well, we may consider it an ADU. It is smaller than the main house. Similar to the last file, this gets a little bit tricky in the sense that this is an existing building and it's not purpose-built. So, you know, we're trying to apply the zoning bylaw regulations to a building that, you know, is already in place. So, you know, how we do that and what the zoning amendment looks like is something that we still have to work through at the staff level.
Okay, all right, so that's fine. I'll just ask the committee members if they have any questions or have any concerns or would like to support the proposed applications. We'll start with you, Dan.
Yeah, I support this one, I think.
Okay, Dennis
I support it as well.
and Paul.
Yeah, I support it. Thank you.
Okay, and I support the application, given the fact that building permits were issued, no conditions were done. I can't see that the owner did anything untoward. They complied, and we have two heritage buildings that we obviously don't want to take down. So I support this. So Lynn, can you just summarize that?
Certainly, the committee supports the application, given that the building permits were issued with no conditions imposed at the time of issuance. And there are two heritage buildings on the property that they would like to keep recognized.
Okay, all right, so I have a mover and a seconder for this.
I'll move.
Dan, okay, Dan, second by Paul. All in favor, Dan,
In favor?
Dennis,
In favor?
Paul?
Favor.
I'm in favor as well. Okay, that concludes this item. So let's move to the item number 8, land division severance application B10-22, also known as D10-BED. Meher Beridian and Nikki Simoyendu, Part Lot 5, Concession 3, municipally known as 6598 Boynton Road 34, Township Puslinch. Proposed residential severance is 90-meter frontage by 70 meters or 0.6 hectares. Existing agriculture use for proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel 7.9 hectares with 199-meter frontage. Existing and proposed rural residential agricultural use with existing dwelling. So just ask. I'll just mention again that the committee's mandate is only provide comments to the county's land division committee when it considers the matter for approval. So we'll ask Courtney to have the agent or applicant join the panelists to present their application. Apologize for mispronouncing the names.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I didn't manage to get my camera working. My apologies. Anyway, were you interested in hearing the proposal currently?
Yes, could you please go through the proposal and any other more information you can add?
Okay, originally, the clients had been looking for a severance actually at the corner of 34 and 32. There's a quite well-defined hardwood bush in the area. There are two severances that were taken back historically that were in the bush quite attractive of lots to people who do like a bit of privacy around. So we were going to apply for a severance at the corner of 34 and 32. As we got into the process, there were concerns about environmentally protecting the hardwood bush and what the impact on the bush would be of the creation of another structure, a building envelope, a septic system, a well. And so we had to look at other alternatives. And what we came up was the proposal that we're presenting to you here tonight. We looked at moving the severance over to Wellington Road 34. There is it's basically a tree line along the road that expands it back a bit towards the northwest as it goes towards in a westerly direction. It allows us, we will have a minimal impact. We had an environmental impact study done to evaluate the hardwood bush and also to evaluate this proposed site. And it appears that this site would have a minimal impact on the hardwood bush. So we looked at that and we've tried to maintain the setbacks from the bush to protect the bush. So basically this is trying to maintain the environmental characteristics and strength of that hardwood bush that's there. And still at the same time, allow room for a dwelling unit, septic system and well. It's fairly straightforward. Other than that, the one thing that was pointed out was that there is no access of the farm field that the dwelling is going to be sitting in. There is no access to it currently from Wellington Road 34. And it certainly would be compliant with both township and county policies for the farmer to construct an access through in exactly the same place as the driveway is going. So really, we're not having any other impact on the bush other than the construction of this driveway. And any tree removal will be done at a time when it is not does not endanger any of the birds in the area. So it's trying to find a solution for a severance that will meet the environmental concerns that were raised earlier in the process.
Okay, great, thank you, Rod. Okay, we'll turn it over to staff. Lynn, can you read out the comments that were proposed by the township?
Comments that are proposed by the township is our standard that the owner satisfy the requirements, financial and otherwise, including taxes paid in full and payment of the consent review and condition clearance fee. Also that safe access to the retained lands can be accommodated to the satisfaction of the township. And the third comment is that the owner enter into an agreement with the township for the purpose of having the submitted environmental impact study be peer reviewed to the satisfaction of the township and the county of Wellington, and that the owner shall be responsible for any township costs associated with the review of the EIS. And that's the comments.
Okay, were there any agency comments?
I have a few to read out. The building department commented that both the house and the septic appear that they can be accommodated on the proposed severed parcel, so they don't have any concerns from their perspective. Township Porcelain Fire Services said their only concern is ensuring that the access route to the home can support emergency vehicles, that it is important that all trees and tree limbs are maintained to allow a clear width of 6 meters and a height above the driveway of at least 5 meters, clear of branches to allow for access of the fire trucks. The GRCA has no objection to the approval of the application. And Source Water stated that the application can be screened out and no notice is required pursuant to the Clean Water Act.
Okay, and Lynn, were there any written comments received?
No, Mr. Chair, there were not.
Okay, so I would read the standard statement out. If any attendees watching the hearing would like to give comments or have questions regarding this application, I advise that your comments can be heard at the Land Division Committee. Do we have a date for the Land Division Committee when this will be heard?
Mr. Chair, I don't, but maybe Mr. Prince knows when it would be going to Land Division.
Through the chair, April 14th is the date.
Okay, so it'll be April 14th. Okay, so let's turn it over to the committee members. Questions of the applicant or of staff. Start with you, Dan.
I guess I'll just make it as a comment, is just in general, the amount of good farmland that this one's taking away. This looks like a decent chunk of farmland here, and we're cutting into it more so with other lots that we approve. They're really not tied so much to a farm, or it's not agricultural type land. But in this case, we're, over half the lot is taking away from farmland. That's just my only comment.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, Dan hit on mine as well, but I think they've done a decent job of minimizing it to get that lot in there. So I guess I'm okay.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, it looks pretty clean to me, so I support it. Thank you.
Okay, okay, I guess, Rod, I have a question. Can you comment on Dan's concern with the farmland being taken up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. It's actually, I know it may look like good farmland. 2 inches below the surface, it's rocks and gravel. I mean, you live in Puslinch, you know what the soil is like in Puslinch. It's not exactly, it is not good farmland. It is secondary agricultural land. And the reason it's secondary agriculture is because the land does not support really intensive farming. It was not our first choice as a location. We did try, we were hoping to retain it, but when we came to the concerns with regard to the environmental protection of the hardwood bush, to put it somewhere, we had to put it where the farmland was.
Okay. Dan, any comments on that?
No, good comments. I appreciate it. It was just a comment on my part.
Sure. Okay, very good. So we have the comments proposed by staff. I just want to make sure we go around the table. Are there any other comments you wish to add? Dan?
No, I'm good.
Dan? Dennis?
I'm good, thanks.
Paul? Sorry, Paul, can't hear you.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no other comments. So Lynn, I guess we support the application and the comments that you've made. So let's go around the table that we have a mover to accept the comments of staff and that we support the application, and we need a seconder for that as well. So a move by Dennis, second by Dan. Okay, and let's go around the table. Dan?
In favor.
Dennis?
In favor.
Paul?
In favor.
And I'm in favor as well. Okay, let's go on to the next items. Other matters, none. Closed meeting, none. Next meeting, Tuesday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Lynn, do we have indication of what's coming up on that agenda?
Mr. Chair, I believe we have one minor variance, but the deadline is not until Friday, so we haven't received any severances yet. We
Okay.
could possibly receive some by Friday, but right now I think we just have the one minor variance.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so now we'll go to adjourn the meeting at 8:13 to have a mover. Dennis, second. Paul, all in favor? Dan?
In favor.
Dennis?
In favor.
Paul?
In favor.
And I'm in favor as well. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.